Hey besties, so welcome back to my channel. So first things first, I don't know how long this silence is gonna last because home guy is sitting right here next to me. He seems to be pretty content with his little bouncer, so we'll see. In the meantime, I'm gonna go ahead and try film this video as quickly as I possibly can. So today I'm here to share with you guys my labor and delivery story, so let's go ahead and dive right into it.
Each time I make a memory, then I'll try to make it with you.
So I'm gonna go ahead and backtrack a little bit so that I can get you guys into the picture and sort of give you guys perspective. I feel like my labor and delivery story started when I had my 36 weeks appointment with my gynae, and I made that 36 weeks and 37 weeks pregnancy update, and I said everything changed. To be honest, everything changed that day. What happened is I went to my 36 weeks appointments like any other appointment. I was scheduled to see my gynae for 20 weeks. What am I saying? For 20 weeks to do that anatomy scan to make sure that everything is growing perfectly and the baby's fine. But because I met up with my midwife after 20 weeks, I had already done the anatomy scan with my previous gynae, so I essentially had two gynaes. So I went and saw my gynae that delivered Peanut when I was about 26 weeks, I believe, just before I went to school. She did also another anatomy scan just for her own sanity to make sure that everything is okay. And even at that appointment, she told me that home guy was growing 2 weeks ahead of schedule. That happened, and so I was seeing my midwife the whole time. And then from that 26 weeks appointment with my gynae, I saw her again at 36 weeks. Just, it was an appointment before the delivery to make sure that again everything is fine, baby is growing fine, he's not tangling himself up, and everything is amazing. And so she checked and everything was great. The umbilical cord was actually behind him. She measured everything. His head was completely big. His head was measuring at 38 weeks and 6 days, and at the time I was exactly 36 weeks and a day, I think, but his body was measuring at 36 weeks and a couple of days. Since I was doing a VBAC, I was attempting to do a vaginal birth after C-section. She changed my due date, and by change due date, I know some people will say that's crazy. How do you do that, especially if you're trying to do natural birth and stuff? The whole reason why she did that was because she was concerned about my C-section scar. Peanut's head was growing really big really fast, and because he was already head down, she was just concerned that if he keeps growing at that rate and the head keeps growing bigger, by the time I'm 40 weeks, his head will be at like 42 weeks, and the scar might not hold. So she moved my due date from the 6th of November to the 1st of November, and she was giving us from the 1st of November until the 7th of November for me to go into labor naturally, or we're just gonna do a C-section, because she was just completely worried that my C-section scar was not gonna hold. And it was very crazy because at the time I was like, oh my gosh, I don't even think I'm ready. I don't have anything. I hadn't packed my hospital bag. I hadn't done anything. I walked into her office being 36 weeks and a day or so, but I walked out being 37 weeks and about 5 days, and I was like, I am not ready. And then she went ahead and checked my C-section scar, which at the time was holding very well. So the appointment ended, I went back home, and I think the following Monday I saw my midwife, but I had already texted her everything that we had discussed with my gynae. So when I saw her, she was like, oh my gosh, okay, that's fine, it's nothing to worry about, we'll just take it one day at a time. And I had already scheduled to do acupuncture, because acupuncture can induce labor. It's not 100% guarantee, but I did go for my acupuncture appointment. I discussed it with my midwife. And so when I went for acupuncture, the guy checked me and he's like, it doesn't look like you're gonna be in labor anytime soon, but I mean, you can start the acupuncture and then we'll just take it from there. So we did the acupuncture, which was the craziest, most weirdest thing I've done all my life, and definitely not what I expected. So we did that, and we scheduled another follow-up appointment. I think I went for my acupuncture appointment when I was about 38 weeks and a couple of days. At one appointment, she checked to see if baby had engaged, and she could feel like he's not engaging, and even I could feel it, like he's not engaged. I still walk perfectly fine. Doesn't feel like I'm waddling or anything like that. So she was like, no, he's not engaging. But I mean, some babies engaged at the very last minute, like just before labor, or some situation like that, so I wasn't necessarily concerned about that. So I was like, okay, that's fine, it'll happen, I'm sure it will. So I just kept bouncing on my yoga ball, which I'm sitting on right now. I feel like this story is going to be here, there, and everywhere, but I'm telling you guys basically details of what happened and how we ended up where we ended up. Anyway, the acupuncture, I scheduled another follow-up appointment, and the follow-up appointment was on the same day that I was seeing my midwife, and I believe it was on the 28th of October, but I could be wrong. It was a Monday. I went to my midwife first. The acupuncture was supposed to come afterwards, and I don't know, something in me just said, you know what, just reschedule the acupuncture appointment. So I just went to see my midwife, and we had a normal consultation. She checked me, checked Peanut. His heartbeat was doing perfectly fine. He was just simply amazing. It was just a textbook pregnancy. His heartbeat was doing great. He was just perfectly fine, except his head was just big. Home guy was just growing too fast, too soon. My midwife was saying, so instead of just waiting it out, let's go see what happens exactly when you get a contraction. So they have this machine that they hook you up to, and they're seeing what she was essentially doing was seeing if my body is actually having effective contractions, because even though I was constantly having Braxton Hicks contractions, it could have been that they were not effective enough to actually get him to engage, so they were not pushing him down enough to be engaged. I went into the hospital. My midwife had booked an appointment, and I was like, thank God I cancelled my acupuncture appointment. She had booked that appointment, so I went in there, and they hooked me up to those machines. It took about 15-20 minutes, I think, and then I got the results and I sent it to her, and they sent it to her as well. My body was actually contracting very effectively with each Braxton Hicks contraction. The only issue is that he just wasn't engaging. I was so convinced this child was going to be born in October, like not November. I was never ready to have a November baby, even though my due date had always been 6th of November. I was like, there's no way in hell I'm having this child in October. Thank you very much. The following Saturday, I had these constant contractions, and I was so sure I was going into labor because they hurt like a mother, and I was like, oh yeah, this is it. We had our birth pole already, we had basically everything ready, and they lasted for like 2 hours straight. I was even timing them because I was like, I'm probably just going into labor, so we need to get ourselves ready. But after 2 hours, they basically just went away, and it was like nothing happened. And I was like, darn it, seriously, back to square one, here we go again. Yeah, I saw my midwife the Monday on the 5th of November, and she was like, okay, here we are, it's Monday the 5th of November. The 7th is literally 2 days away. I am not in labor still. So what she did is, when she was, yeah, I swear he's not crying, he's just bubbling away. When she was checking me, when she checked to see if Peanut is engaged, he was not engaged at all. But now what was happening is, after I had those contractions on a Saturday, like those back-to-back contractions, on Sunday, every time I got a Braxton Hicks contraction, it literally felt like I was gonna explode. It was the most intense pressure. Like, I basically had to stop through every Braxton Hicks contraction. Like, there was no way I was gonna be able to like walk through it like I normally would do. Like, I'd be on some, oh, I'm getting a Braxton Hicks contraction, and then just carry on with life. That Sunday, every time I got a Braxton Hicks contraction, I had so much pressure like around my C-section scar, and my tummy would be pushed forward instead of like coming in. Like, you know, when you get a contraction, your belly sort of comes in and it tightens you up. This time there was so much pressure, he was basically pushing out, if that makes any sense. I told my midwife about it, and she was like, okay, let's go have a check. And she was also starting to get concerned. I was starting to get concerned because I was like, what in the heck is going on? She checked if he's engaged, and he wasn't engaged. So what she did is she basically tried to push him into my pelvic. He'd go in and quickly just almost like pop back out. It was the most craziest thing. I don't know how to explain this, but it just didn't last. She was like, okay, I'm not gonna force it, because whenever she did that and checked his heartbeat, it would be like super fast, and it would be like he's panicking, and I would have to take like super deep breaths and just be calm, and he'd calm down again. Also at that appointment, we called my gynae, and we had explained to her the situation, and she was like, yeah, I was actually worried about that. I was worried that might happen, and so yeah, go ahead and book the hospital, and we'll just take it from there. So my midwife called the hospital, Genesis Maternity Clinic, and booked for my C-section. which was actually crazy. I just felt like I was in a dream. Like I was like, what the hell's going on? Like this is not how it's supposed to go. I kept telling my midwife, this is the craziest, most weirdest thing I've ever done. There was already another mom who was scheduled for another C-section in the morning, so I got the later one. So my midwife scheduled the appointment for like 7:30 on Wednesday the 7th of November, and basically organized the that guy that does the epidural. I can never pronounce that. And funny enough, it was Diwali on that day, and it was crazy because the assistant called back to say it's actually Diwali, there's a good chance she might not make it. But then the gynae called me personally to say, don't worry about it, I will be there. I will be there, like you don't have to cancel anything, which was great. I am forever grateful to that woman. And so everything was organized literally on the 5th. When I walked out of my midwife's consultation room, out of her house, I was just like, wow, okay, so this is actually happening. They were actually giving us the appointment for the 6th, the very following day, and I was like, I'm not ready. Like nope. I need a moment to go home and actually process this and actually make peace with myself that this is what's gonna happen, and if we have to do it tomorrow, I'm not ready. It's too close, it's too soon, I need time. And so the 7th it was. So I went back home, I told Dizzy about everything, like here's what's gonna happen. We are scheduled for a C-section on Wednesday at 7:30 at night or in the evening, and it's because Peanut is just not engaging, and my C-section scar, even though it was holding, you don't want to leave. My gynae said to me, you don't want to leave it to a point where it has ruptured, because when it gets there, it's life-threatening. You want to avoid it as hard as you possibly can, and if you feel like it's going down the road, then you stop it in its tracks and you do what needs to be done. And that, at that point, we were doing what needed to be done. So yeah, and with that, I came back here and basically packed my hospital bag. My hospital bag was packed on the 5th of November, and I'm not even kidding you guys. I packed my hospital bag, I made sure everything is okay, I checked with my medical aid. I think I called them like a billion times. First I had to have them edit my authorization number, because I'm that crazy girl who's constantly paranoid that medical is not going to cover stuff if you don't tell them anything. It's like car insurance. So I had to call them and tell them, oh look, we were doing vaginal birth after C-section, but things have changed, so now we're going to be doing a scheduled C-section. I'm still keeping the same professionals, so like gynae, midwife, everybody else still stays the same, but the procedure is just different. The hospital's the same. And they're like, no, it's fine, you don't even have to. When the hospital claims, they will put everything down in their claim. And I was like, I just had to make sure, and I know you guys record these calls, so when you don't want to pay, I can come back and say, I did call you and you did say it's fine. Hi. So I can be on Sam, I did call you and you did say it's fine, so let's get that recording and make that straight. The pediatrician had to be paid in advance, which was done like months before. And the only thing that had to be paid the day before the surgery was my gynae. Thankfully, you know, the funny thing is, the whole time I always had this thing in the back of my mind that we're gonna need money just before this child is born, and I didn't know what for, like, but I always had that thing in my mind, like we should always have cash around. And yep, we needed to pay the gynae before the operation, so that was paid, and everything, I made sure that everything was settled before the operation, because I did not want to be stressing about it on the 7th of November. I just wanted to take it easy. Yeah, 5 weeks old and he's already talking up a storm. So I made sure that everything was paid and everything was packed and everything was basically ready, from car seats to backpacks to hospital bags to KBS hospital bag, basically everything, because I did not want to be stressing about it on the 7th of November. So I did that, and so the 7th of November came, and this is basically where the labor and delivery situation starts, I think, which is weird. 7th of November was just like any other day, to be honest with you guys. Woke up in the morning, took Kibazwani to school, and on the way to school I had this intense Braxton contraction. We basically had to stop because at that time I was like, babe, I'm gonna explode. So we had to stop and I had to just wait it out because it was so intense. There was so much pressure. It was crazy. I took her to school because I was like, I don't want her around the house. I just need to be able to just breathe through everything and just have a clear head. And Dizzy was actually on the way back from Free State because he went to go get his mom. back to Joburg, and I was a little panicked, even though I didn't say anything, because I was like, this is a bad time to be traveling. I mean, God forbid anything happens, what am I gonna do? I was here at home basically packing everything, getting ready. I did film a video which was so cute. I think it was cute anyway. So it looks like Peanut's gonna be joining us now. Around 1 o'clock, I believe, Dizzy came here, and we went to the mall because I needed to buy, what did I even need to buy? I don't remember, but I do remember buying baking ingredients because I wanted to bake a birthday cake for him. Seeing that this was such a crazy, weird experience for me, I thought I might as well just make it fun. I might as well just bake a cake because now I have time. I didn't just go into spontaneous labor. I baked him a cake, which I did with K-Bear. I got her from school, or went to go get her from school. I told her that her baby brother was gonna be born, and she was a bit confused because she was like, how does that even work out? And we left here at 5:20, which we were 20 minutes late. We should have left at 5 to be at the hospital at 5:30. We got there just before 6, or about 15 minutes before 6 p.m, which was still great. My midwife was already there. She had already started with the paperwork. My friend came in to get K-Bear because I didn't want her to come with us to the operating room. We took a couple of pictures. We had good laughs. I was still freaking out, and the epidural guy, which I can't pronounce his name, came in and put the drip on my arm, which was terrifying. And after he did that, I started shaking so bad. I remember giving my friend a hug and saying to her, can you feel that I'm shaking? And she's like, yes, I can, just calm down. It was seriously the craziest thing. I just never imagined it going that way. I always thought if we have to end up with a C-section, it would be similar to K-Bear's birth, or it would be some sort of situation where I was in labor or something happened, like nothing life-threatening, but I just always imagined it being after labor, not necessarily getting into the hospital like we're checking into a hotel room, if that makes any sense. It was so crazy. Exactly 7:30 p.m. we went into the operating room. It was cold as ice. Apparently that's how the temperature must be. I remember them blowing me with this warm air because I was so cold and so shaky. I mean, I was the only naked person in there. Everybody else was dressed. He did the spinal block there. It took a couple of tries and it hurt so bad. I was like, does it have to be that painful? I don't remember it being like that the last time. And my guy was like, yeah, that's because the last time you had just went through 11 hours or 10 hours of labor, so any pain just didn't phase you at all. I was like, fair point, but damn, it had. And eventually he got it right, and so everything began. It felt like I was in an episode of Grey's Anatomy, having them talk about their favorite series and me being cut open. It was just the craziest thing. I remember lying on that bed and thinking, how did I even end up here? Like, how did this even happen? But yeah, it was happening. I was right in the middle of it, literally in the middle of it. I remember saying to myself, as long as he's healthy, that's fine. That's all I need. And my midwife asked my gynae to check me to see if there was any sign of labor, and it turns out there was 0 sign, like no effacement, no dilation, nothing at all. And at the time, I was already a day overdue. They did what they had to do, and I remember at one point my blood pressure was low, and my gynae was asking the guy who was monitoring the blood pressure, like, what's going on? Am I missing a bleed? And I'm just like, I'm right here, you know, I can hear anything and everything that you guys are saying. What bleed are you missing? Am I just gonna die here? They're like, nope. If you were gonna die here, nobody would be talking, promise you, because we'd be trying to save your life. I felt a whole lot of pressure when they pushed him out, because they didn't necessarily yank him out. They pushed him out so that it can be like natural birth, if that makes any sense, which I don't get. But yeah, they did that, and at exactly, ow, dude, you're pulling my earring. At exactly 4 minutes after 8 p.m, home guy was born, and he was screaming his little lungs out. And it was seriously the most breathtaking, amazing, and refreshing moment ever. I was so happy and so relieved to have him be safe and have him be alive. He was so perfect and screaming his little lungs out. It was so magical. It's not even funny. Yeah, and that's basically how Peanut was born. It's not necessarily the path I was hoping for, but to be honest, I'm so grateful that he is here alive and well. And we did notice that when he was born, his head, like his forehead, was a bit, there was like a little dent, or a dent actually, and my gynae says it's because he was trying so hard to fit into my pelvic and it just wasn't happening. So he was trying so badly to engage and it wasn't happening, and it's probably because his head was bigger. And now he's fine, you don't see it anymore, but when he was born you could totally see it. This little guy was delivered by C-section, so I don't have an amazing vaginal birth after C-section story, which kind of sucks, because I really wanted to do it and I was so ready to do it, and sometimes things just don't work out. But if you have a healthy bouncy baby boy at the end of it, it doesn't matter how it happened. All that matters is that you have a healthy, living, breathing baby. And yeah, here we are, 5 weeks into it. But yeah, that's how he was born. I hope you guys enjoyed watching. If I forgot any detail, you will see me pop in the screen here somewhere to explain a bit more exactly what I meant. But yeah, that's basically the gist of how Peanut was born. I hope you guys enjoyed watching. Don't forget to thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't. And until then, we'll see you guys on the next video. Bye, besties.